Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome to Recreate Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Rachel, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of body composition and the benefits to being optimized in that region. So we have a body composition scanner here at our office that we use to measure this, but there's a lot of ways that you can do it, whether you have a coach that uses calipers to measure it, or you can look up InBody USA and see if there's somebody near you that has a scan like we do. And this scanner will tell you your optimal muscle mass, your optimal body fat percentage, and give you recommendations on like what you need to lose in what areas to get to the best version of yourself, okay? So for females, optimal body fat percentage is 18 to 28%, and for males, it's 10 to 20%. And we're just gonna start today off with a few stories from my own personal experience on like what it feels like to be at different percentages. So when we first purchased our body scan machine, I was at 33%, which is 5% above optimal for females, which is like overweight. And honestly, I didn't even think that I looked overweight at that body fat percentage, but I think that's just because our perception is so skewed right now in America, because the majority of people are overweight or obese. So you're comparing yourself against the majority, meaning like, me at 33%, I'm comparing myself to the majority of people are above 40%. So at 33%, I thought like, hey, I'm doing pretty good because I'm not over the 40% like most of America. But unfortunately at 33%, there was still some like negative health repercussions, right? So my blood work was not optimal, like my cholesterol was a little bit high. And I just, had a little bit of fluff around the waistline. My waist and my hips were like closer to being even, which is not a good thing. I was thinking that I was just barrel chested, because I always have said that since I was like a teenager, like, oh, well, that shirt just doesn't fit me because I'm barrel chested. But it's actually just because my body fat percentage was too high and my visceral fat was too high, which is like the fat that is underneath your rib cage. So like you can lose like 5 pounds of visceral fat, and like the only thing that happens is like your rib cage inflammation goes down. It doesn't even necessarily go down like in your waistline as much. So there's a lot of hidden fat under the surface. When you're at 33%, you might not like look physically like obese or anything, but it's still not healthy, right? It still is going to make you prone to heart disease, prone to diabetes, all these things. And when I was at 33%, exercising was difficult, right? So I'm always trying to keep up with my husband because he's like a total fitness nut, and he can not train and go do a 5K and just like, be under 25 minutes, no problem, without even trying. But that's because he always maintains like a very low body fat percentage. So he can always be very, very fast. And I just like didn't understand why, when I was training just as much as he was, why I couldn't keep up. And the reality was I couldn't keep up just because it was so much effort for my body to move me with that much fat percentage around my organs, around my joints, et cetera, et cetera. Like, if your heart is being crushed by visceral fat, it's really hard to get a good breath in when you're trying to do cardio, right? So my running performance was not great at 33%. I would always get like a headache within the first mile. And I would just be like, man, I really want to run further, but like these headaches are keeping me from like pushing through it. And I think that was really one of the main things that, clicked for me, that I knew that I needed to like change something up, because I was like, shouldn't be getting a headache less than 10 minutes into doing cardio, right? And that's not to mention, different gymnastics things, right? Like I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I was like, man, like it's like all the effort in the world for me to just do like one muscle up, and pull-ups are a struggle. And, we would go do the Murph, every year, and the Murph, you're doing a 1 mile run with a backpack, then you're doing 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another mile run. And I just remember looking at that and just being like, dude, no way I can do 100 pull-ups, no way I can do 200 push-ups. But it's really just because like I was weighing, 160 at the time, and it's really hard to do, 100 pull-ups for my body size at 160, right? So like fast forward to now at like 147, it's a lot easier to do 100 pull-ups at that weight, right? Because like it's like I just took a weight vest off. Like what's the difference between you doing a pull-up without a weight vest and a pull-up with a weight vest, right? You lose 14 pounds, you just lost a weight vest. Life just got way easier. You can do a lot more pull-ups when you're not wearing a weight vest all the time of that extra 14 pounds, right? So now, currently, I'm at about 20% body fat instead of 33% body fat, right? So like I said, optimal for females is that 18 to 28 range. And I honestly just like didn't even realize how much more like fluid things would feel as far as exercise goes at 20% compared to when I was even at like 28%, which is what I was at the beginning of this round of 75 hard, right? Even at this beginning of this round of 75 hard, I felt like I couldn't run for 45 minutes straight. I felt like a 5K was a struggle. Muscle ups were a struggle, all these things. And I think I was at like 155, 156 at the beginning of this round of 75 hard, right? Most people would look at that and be like, okay, 156 to 146, like that's only 10 pounds. That's not that big of a difference. Like 10 pounds is not going to make that big of a difference in my performance, because people, if you don't lose 40 pounds, people just discredit it as like not being important, or it's no big deal, or oh, it's only 10 pounds, a diet didn't work unless I lose at least 20 in 6 weeks, kind of a thing. 75 hard is 75 days of working out twice a day, and that's what it took for me to get from 156 to 146, right? With a lot of caloric restrictions in there and working out personal trainers. So, 10 pounds can be a lot of effort for certain people, depending on where you're starting at, right? But like I said, I never really perceived that I was overweight at 28%, because I was just like, well, I'm within the normal range, like it's all good, everything should be fine. But you can feel so much better and perform so much better like at the gym and in all of your like athletic endeavors when you're lower, right? And like I said, my husband's usually running around at like 8%, which is like, borderline too low sometimes, but his performance is always on point, and I always feel like my goal in life is to someday be able to do like a run with him and keep up, where he's not feeling like he's barely jogging to like allow me to run with him. So I've just come to the realization that that's what was missing, is that like I needed to get my body fat percentage down to a point where I can perform better, because I'm not carrying that 10 to 14 pound weight vest around all the time, and it makes life a lot easier. Even when it comes to like joint pain, 10 pounds makes like a world of difference. Even 5 pounds makes a world of difference on joint pain. I know my mom and I both like were very prone to knee pain. Like my grandma's had multiple knee replacements and hip surgeries and all these things, right? So like that's what I'm looking at in the older ages. And my mom and I both have realized that if we stay under the 155 mark, we don't really have knee pain. If we get above the 155 pounds mark, we tend to have knee pain, right? And that's just because that's extra stress on your joints. That extra 5 pounds provides like a ton of pressure on your knees, right? An extra 10 to 14 pounds is going to be like carrying a weight vest all the time. If you go do like a 3-mile walk with a weight vest on, tell me your low back and your knees aren't sore. Your low back and your knees are going to be sore just from that extra like little bit of weight that you have in that backpack. And if you lose that, your form and function and like joint mobility and decrease in pain is phenomenal, right? Like I just finished a 5K this morning where I've never been able to really like push it through the run to that ability. I used to just feel like my legs were like bricks, or like they were solid, or they were swollen, or like, I was trying to pull like a water balloon through the lake or something. I just felt like there was like so much resistance when I was running that I just couldn't hit this like fluid motion. I couldn't really like kick it, or like I couldn't breathe when I tried to really kick it. And being down what I am right now currently, like I can just really like crank it. And that's not to say that I'm like a super fast runner, right? Like it still takes me about a half hour to finish a 5K. I'm not a running athlete. It's just something that I do to keep myself accountable, because I always feel like, if I get to a point where I cannot complete a 5K, I've let myself go a little too far and I got to reel it back in and try again. So it's really just more of a checks and balances thing for me to do the 5Ks than I'm trying to win at it, because I try to win at like weightlifting type of things, and I don't want to like lose my strength to be able to beat everybody at a 5K, but I do like to push myself and try to beat myself every time and, improve my performance and feel better. But I digress. So let's see, what else have I noticed? Yeah, so like just as far as like energy and sleep goes too, your body's so much more efficient at lower body fat percentages. And I used to always like kind of look at my husband weird when he would say this, because he would just be like, well, I feel fine, at 8% body fat. Like my body's just really efficient at using the calories that I give it. And, like my body's like this well-oiled machine, and I can just like hammer through workouts and be like good to go. It's mind over matter, all these things. And I kind of would just look at him and be like, yeah, but you need to refeed. Yeah, but you need to be, heavier to lift more, and blah, 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 all these things. That were just really like excuses that I think I was like feeding my brain to like not try to optimize things. But now being at like 20%, which is probably like the lowest body fat percent I've been at since like, I don't know, middle school. Cause even in like middle school and high school, I always felt like I had a little bit of a belly. Even when I weighed I think I weighed like 135, 140 in high school, which is less than I weigh now, but like I have definitely put on like a ton of muscle. When I joined CrossFit back in like 2012, I put on 20 pounds of muscle like the first 6 months, because I started like really pushing it with the weights. So like my muscle percentage is way higher than what it was in high school. So I don't, expect to be running around at 135 unless I lose a significant amount of muscle. But I do think like running around at 145 is great. I went to the gym the other day and started to do muscle ups just for fun, which I was terrified to do at like a generic gym, because it wasn't like a complete, bar like it is at CrossFit, and like there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and like your hands are kind of angled, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna like slip and fall in front of all these people. And then I'm 5'2", you guys, so like if I fall, it's a long way down, and I usually have to use a stepping stool to even get up to the pull-up bar at the gym. So I was like, oh, if I fall, I'm gonna roll my ankle and like trip on this bench that I used, or the Bosu ball that I bounce off of, and I literally like hop from the Bosu ball to get to the barbell. But I made it, and then I was like, you know what, let's just see what I can do. And I literally just started like repping them out, one right after the other, and I was just shocked with myself. And it just really clicked for me that it's like, okay, well, I'm in way better cardio shape right now. My visceral fat is down. I have less things impinging on my like cardiovascular system, and I'm just lighter. I lost a whole backpack worth of weight, so it's a lot easier to pull yourself all the way up and do a muscle up. And, that was just phenomenal for me. So yeah, really important to remember, guys, that like if you're looking for optimal performance, if you're looking to decrease joint pain, to just have like more energy and vitality, optimizing your body fat percentage is like clutch. And never ever ever discredit yourself with, oh, it's only 5 pounds or it's only 10 pounds, because they'll literally have patients that do this all the time where they're like, well, if I don't lose 20 pounds on this 21-day cleanse, I'm gonna be really upset and think it didn't work. And my brain just like wants to explode, because I'm like, have you guys ever seen that picture of like 5 pounds of muscle versus 5 pounds of fat? So like 5 pounds of muscle is like this, 5 pounds of fat is like, you know, you're holding a giant gallon of milk. It's just a way big difference on the amount of mass. If you haven't seen that picture, like Google it right now and look it up, and then the next time you say, oh, it's only 5 pounds of fat loss, like check yourself, right? And that's kind of like the other good thing about the body composition scan machine too, because you know, I'm a kind of person where I build muscle so fast that like I swear even my personal trainer doesn't believe me until I show him the body scan, and he'll be like, there's no way that you built muscle during a deficit. And I'm like, joke's on you, I have Allspaul and Brooks genes, like we build muscle in our sleep, like it just is what it is. Like I'm blessed in that way, but it gets really discouraging when I look at a typical scale, because I'll look at a typical scale and I'll be like, well, I only lost 3 pounds, you know, in the last like 5 weeks. I must not be trying very hard. Like I must not be doing very good. Like I should be losing at least 2 pounds a week. Why am I only losing 1 pound a week? And you get discouraged, you know, when you start giving yourself that kind of self-talk. But that's what we're brainwashed into, right? Because we get all these like advertisements for cleanses that promise that we can lose that much. And when you do a body composition scan, you can actually track the muscle you're gaining versus the fat that you're losing. So again, like me, the last 75 days, I started 75 hard at 158, right? And a lot of that was like beer weight, because it was after the biggest party weekend of the year in Port Huron. And you know, so I lost like the first 3 pounds in about 4 days, because that's how long it takes to pee off the water weight after a weekend of partying, is about 4 or 5 days. So I think I really started the program more around like 155, 154, after I peed off all that beer water. And, you know, in 75 days, right, which is 2.5 months, I went from like 155 to like 146 is what I was this morning, right? So not even really a full 10 pounds over 2.5 months. However, I lost like 6% body fat, right? So I literally lost 1% of body fat per week, but I only lost, you know, like 8 or 9 pounds. That's a ridiculous difference, right? So like most people would be like, oh my gosh, I just put forth 2.5 months of effort and I only lost 8 pounds, and then they would just get irritated and quit. Or like have a cheat meal because they'd be like, oh, it's not working, you know, the diet I'm doing is not working, it's ineffective because I'm not losing weight really fast, blah, blah, blah. But if you do check your actual body fat, you know, with some kind of scan or with calipers with a trainer or something, you know, that's gonna recalibrate your brain to be like, oh my God, 1% of my body in fat I lost per week. That's huge. You know, that's life-changing, and that's gonna change 100% like how you feel and how you function. And I mean, I know for me, it was like such a win when I did my body scan halfway through 75 hard, and I did that calculation, realized I was losing 1% body fat a week, even though, you know, me and my trainer were both getting frustrated that my actual number on the scale wasn't changing as much as we wanted it to. So, you know, don't get discouraged if you don't lose 21 pounds in 21 days. Just like consider where you started, consider where you want to be, and always take into consideration those other functional measures for how you feel. You know, like how easy is it for you to work out now? How do your joints feel? How's your sleep? How's your sex drive? How's your energy at work through the day? All these different things that we can consider to really like see if the program that we're on is a success or if it's not a success. So what I would encourage all of you guys to do, get some kind of body composition scan done anytime that you're at the beginning of a transformation event, so that you can like accurately track, you know, your body fat percentage, where you're starting and where you need to be. And this is especially important because not all people look like the body fat percentage that they are. You know, I had people in chiropractic school with me that would do their body scan, and they're way smaller than me, right? These girls were like tiny, and they would do their scan, and they'd be at like 40% body fat, and they'd be like, oh my God, how can I be at 40% body fat? I wear like a size 4. And it's because like there is such a thing as skinny fat, right? Like if you are under muscled and eating like crud, even if you're skinny, you cannot be at a good body composition. And that's why I do think it's like super important to do those kinds of scans, because the number on the scale is not always indicative of health, right? Because you can be light and still be very unhealthy on the inside. And, you know, and then some of us, like, we hide our fat well. I mean, I honestly think I'm one of those people where I can be at 33% body fat, and I'm a mesomorph. So, you know, like, I still look relatively muscular when I'm at 33%. Like, you know, some of my friends could be at 33%, and, you know, they get like the, you know, the pear shape thing going. That's just not in my genetics, right? So we all don't have the same body shape at the same body fat percentage, but the same body fat percentage is always going to be healthy for our insides and our outsides, and is always going to make us feel the best, right? So, you know, you could be a 20% body fat and be a size 2. You could be a 20% body fat and be a size 10. Like, we all are built differently. We all have different shapes, but we still need to optimize that number in order to feel the best. If you want to know how to optimize that number, you can listen to some of my other podcasts and like how I drill everybody with making sure they count their macros, make sure you eat protein, you know, hire a personal trainer, do some cardio, start 75 hard. There's a million things that we talk about in other episodes that are, you know, how to achieve optimal body fat percentages, but I just wanted to give you guys some examples today of what it feels like to be at different percentages, because you're definitely going to feel better when you're in that optimal range than when you're above it. And, you know, I had joint pain at 33% and less energy, and it was harder to work out. So, you know, those of you that are starting this journey above 40%, man, I give you huge props, because like it's going to be more mentally taxing on you, because your energy is not going to feel as good as some of us that are at the lower percentages. And it's just important to keep that in mind and be like mentally, like, just power through those, you know, those test days until you can get to a percentage where you have more energy. But like, I promise you, every 5 pounds you lose, you will feel better, you will have more energy, and you will have a higher level of functioning and a higher level of living. So thanks for joining me today, guys. I hope this helps, and we'll definitely have some more podcasts on how to achieve those optimal percentages. I'll keep you guys updated on my bodybuilding journey. I have competition in a few weeks, and I'm ready